William Brown was a senior defensive back on the varsity football team at Anywhere High School. During a game at an opposing school, 50 miles from Anywhere, William lowered his head while attempting a tackle, struck the ball carrier with the top of his helmet, and broke his neck. As William lay face down on the field, a teammate rolled him over. He saw William's hands and feet move slightly, but he appeared unconscious. William's coach came onto the field and also saw his hands move, but noticed William's breathing was shallow, so removed his helmet and began mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. William quickly regained consciousness, but complained of severe neck pain and loss of sensation in his body. William was taken by ambulance to Anywhere and hospitalized for treatment, but never recovered. He remains totally paralyzed, requiring a life-sustaining respirator to assist his breathing. William sued his high school district, also naming several of its employees as defendants.
Good.
He claimed they negligently caused and then aggravated his injuries.
Everyone please rise. This court is now in session. Honorable Judge Jonathan T. Howe presiding.
This is a portion of the trial of his case.
Everyone, please be seated.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Morning, Judge.
This is the time set for the trial in the case of William Brown versus the Anywhere School District. We're sitting without a jury because you, the audience, will be asked to render a verdict at the conclusion of the evidence and the close of this case. You must decide whether the defendants negligently caused the injury from which the plaintiff suffered. Specifically, you must determine first whether the defendant coaches taught improper tackling techniques or encouraged dangerous techniques which increased the risk of the plaintiff's injuries. Secondly, you'll be asked to determine whether the defendants failed to properly warn and inform the plaintiff and his parents of the risk of this injury while playing football and of the techniques which can produce such an injury. Thirdly, as the jury in this case, you'll be asked to determine whether the defendants failed to provide the plaintiff adequate preventative medical care and allowed him to play in spite of a condition which increased the risk of such an injury. And lastly, you'll be asked to decide whether the defendants improperly handled and treated the plaintiff following his injury, thereby causing an aggravation of his medical condition. All of the witnesses in this case have been previously sworn, and we are now ready to proceed. Is the plaintiff ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is the defense ready?
The defense is ready, Your Honor.
Plaintiff may call his first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. We'll call the defendant, Athletic Director Bill Todd.
Mr. Todd, you have been previously sworn. Please take the witness stand right there.
State your full name, please.
Me, Todd, Bill Todd.
You're a defendant in this lawsuit.
I think so.
You are the athletic director at Anywhere High School.
Yes.
And during your coaching career, what did you coach?
I was a basketball coach and assistant football coach.
Matter of fact, you were assistant to Coach Kintz, who's also
Yes.
a defendant in this
Correct.
case. Is that right?
Correct, yes, sir.
As a matter of fact, you have a lot of confidence in Coach Kintz and his abilities, so you felt that what was going on at Anywhere High School was the least of your worries. Is that right?
Very much so. Ed and I worked together for a long time.
And tell me what there was about his performance that assured you that he was doing an outstanding job as a coach.
Well, I think his background in coaching, his philosophy with youngsters, his concern with youngsters, concern with the program itself, and the whole part of the educational process, he was a part of it, not just a football coach, but a person very concerned with the community and what went on in the community.
I think you said in your deposition the bottom line was he had a great win-loss record, and that's reflective of good coaching, correct?
That always adds to being a good coach, right?
Now, in terms of some procedures in your district with respect to providing sports medicine, I believe you testified that you were one of the leaders in bringing an athletic trainer into the school district. Is that right?
Yes, we were.
What determination was made about bringing athletic trainers into the various programs?
Well, of course, the situation was finding a position to put them in the school, or a separate position wasn't a possibility because of finances. So you had to find and work them into a teaching position, and then the additional money, the cost per school for the athletic trainer and the facilities and things that he had to have, and it was just not feasible to do it at the time because of the cost. I think cost probably the bottom line.
Mr. Todd, let's talk a little bit about the issue of warning athletes and their parents regarding the risks of participation in sports. As a part of your role as an athletic director, you attend conferences and seminars and conventions of people similarly situated, not only in this state, but throughout the country, do you not?
Yes, I do.
And it's been commonplace at those meetings for several years for people to talk about the trend in high school sports to warn athletes and to obtain what's been called informed consent from athletes and their parents. Is that right?
It's true. Failure to warn has become a big issue in athletics,
As a matter of
especially in the
fact-
area of football.
What did you see as the downside of warning parents about the risks of participation in sports?
Well, I think basically it's would be a problem of we make it look that it's a very dangerous, and we have parents out there who see it and say, well, I don't want my youngster to be subject to that danger and participate in a contact sport.
And therefore, there'd be a decline in the number of athletes in your program, correct?
Possibly a decline in the number of athletes, yes, I think so.
And that reflects badly on you as an athletic director because part of your job is to keep participation up, right?
Well, I think that's what I'm there for.
In terms of the medical coverage that was present at the ball game when William was hurt, you do recall that some issues had been raised with you by the athletic trainer and the team doctor concerning having better coverage, especially at your away games, correct?
Yes.
And your philosophy about that is it's up to the home school to provide a doctor, and we're not going to second guess them, right?
Well, I think you're infringing on the other school's responsibility, and if you take a doctor in, they may object to it. So it's been the tradition that the home school does provide the medical care.
No matter whether that means you're shirking your responsibility to the athletes for whom you're responsible, right?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I am.
No further questions.
Mr. Halbrook, you may cross-examine.
Thank you, Your Honor. Are you familiar, Mr. Todd, with a sports warning statement that the parents and pupils are required to sign at the beginning of the season?
Yes.
And would you please describe the substance of that statement?
Well, it states that school system is not totally responsible for, or warns them of the injuries and so forth, and that parents sign it to consent to the youngster to participate.
Now, what injuries does it warn them of, sir?
Contact, all sports, I think. I think it's all sports.
I don't mean the sport. I mean, what does it detail any specific injury, or does it say injury? Does it say death possible, or what?
Injuries.
All right. Do you know who drafted it or who administers it?
The individual schools, the athletic administrator in the school, the coaches.
All right. That's not something that comes out of your office.
Well, it originates there.
As a matter of fact, doesn't it say that participation in competitive athletics may result in severe injury, including paralysis or death?
Yes, I believe that's correct stating.
And the parent signs this,
Mm-hmm.
and the pupil signs it?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Todd. No further questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Ball, any redirect?
Just a little, Your Honor. Mr. Todd, Mr. Halbrook questioned you about this warning statement that the parents and the athletes signed. I want to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 1 in evidence in this case and ask you whether this is the document that contains that warning.
Could you give me the time to read the document?
Well, I would have assumed that it would be
Well-
familiar to you. It says there, Anywhere High School Athletic Philosophy and Athlete Code, and it's got the headings of the school all over the stationery, does it not?
Yes, it does, but I didn't prepare it, so I'd like to look at it.
If I may
Okay.
approach the witness also, Your Honor, I think I could save some time here and direct the witness to the page that it's on, be the last page at the
Yeah,
bottom.
I got it.
Well, that's one of the points that I wanted to make with you, Mr. Todd. This is presented to the athletes and their parents in a document that's stapled together, and you have to leaf through several pages to get to the one that contains that warning, don't you? As a
Yes.
matter of fact, you have to leaf through about 8 pages, don't you?
Right.
And the team mascot of the Anywhere High School team is the Knights, and on most every page, the most prominent print is, "Be a proud Knight." Is that right?
Right.
Okay. And you read through a full page of the athletic philosophy, and you read through 2 full pages of the athlete's code that talks about things like not using tobacco, alcohol, and narcotics, and maintaining proper grooming standards, and financial responsibility for your equipment. And then you go on to about 3 pages about NCAA eligibility requirements. And after you've read all that, you get to a page that says, "Be a proud Knight. I verify that I've read all of this stuff," right?
Right.
And finally, sports warning statement, which
Right.
starts with, "Be a proud Knight,"
Right.
correct?
Right.
And then, if the person has read all that other stuff, they get around to reading this warning, correct?
Mhm.
And
Yes.
you don't remember what the warning says, do you?
Well, not verbatim.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further, Mr. Ball?
That's all, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Todd, you may step down. We thank you for your testimony. Mr. Ball, you may call your next witness now.
Thank you, Your Honor. We'll call the defendant, Coach Ed Kintz.
Mr. Kintz, you too have been previously sworn. Would you please take the witness stand?
State your full name, please.
J. Edward Kintz.
You are a defendant in this lawsuit.
Yes, sir.
You are the head coach at Anywhere High School.
Yes, sir.
Tell us your educational background and your coaching and teaching experience, if you would, please.
I graduated from Louisville High School in 1957, matriculated to Colorado College in Colorado Springs, graduated there with a BA in History and Education in 1961, and then began teaching shortly thereafter.
So you've been involved in coaching and teaching for over 25 years.
Right at 25, yes, sir.
And you took the head coaching position at Anywhere about 5 years before this boy was hurt.
Yes, sir.
Tell us a little bit about your philosophy of the game of football and why it's your first love.
Well, you know, football is a unique game. It demands courage. And when you get a sport that demands courage, you have a chance, I think, to develop some of the qualities that we say we develop in athletics. And the service academies require football out of all of their cadets, at least for a quarter, and there's a reason for that. It's a manly sport. It takes an individual that can handle his inabilities, in a sense, or his own self-image where he lacks. I think football brings that out and helps him develop that better than any other sport.
Along that line of the service academies requiring football, I think you testified in your deposition that you once heard someone refer to it as the moral equivalent of war, right?
Yes, sir. I've heard that quite often, and thank goodness we maybe can avoid wars. Maybe football would be a better substitute.
Is it a violent game?
Yes, sir.
And you believe that people have to understand that the inherent nature of the game is violence, is
Yes,
that
sir.
right? Let's talk a little bit about rules of the game, Coach. I think you testified in your deposition your recollection that in the mid-'70s, spearing was outlawed in football, is that right?
Yes, sir.
But you indicated that by your definition, spearing is intentionally using the helmet to inflict harm upon an opponent, right?
Right. We do not teach that. We never have. Even
And-
before the rule came in, we didn't teach that.
So when the rule came in, you saw no need to change what you were teaching kids,
No, we were
right?
already teaching proper use of the head, I believe, as far as body position in terms of making better execution of blocking and tackling.
When that new rule came out in 1976, did you make a point of getting the rule book and reading what the rule committee had written in the book about
Very
the rule?
definitely. I think as a good football coach, you've got to know all the rules. You know, there's rules to help you win football games, and there's rules that help you better prepare your players. And so I've always read the rule book.
And do you recall that right in the rule book was a rather lengthy dissertation about the fact that this rule had come about as a result of a concern of the rule makers concerning players breaking their necks and suffering brain damage in
Yes, sir.
football?
I remember reading that.
And common sense told you, and your experience as a football player told you, that if you hit somebody with the top of your helmet, you could break your neck, right?
Yes, sir.
Let's talk a little bit about the tackling technique you taught. You said that you want your athletes to be able to see what they're attempting to tackle. Describe for the jury the things you told these athletes about the position they were to assume in making a tackle.
Well, basically, we want the butt down, and so that we get the bigger mass of our legs underneath us. So we're going to use our legs as a focal point as far as all of our athletic fundamentals in blocking and tackling.
Then what do you tell them to do?
Well, we're going to wrap up and drive that individual to the ground.
Well, in terms of the focal point of the eyes being the numbers, that's also what you taught them to be the strike point, right? To stick the face mask right on that focal point.
Yeah, we want to put the face mask there, but it very seldom happens that way. Backs move, you never get a tackle like that, but basically in teaching fundamentals and good body position, you put them in the best position by teaching that fundamental.
Are you aware that the actual language of the rule book for high school football prohibits the use of the face mask, the forehead, or the crown of the helmet as the primary point of contact in blocking and tackling?
I'm aware of that, but as I just mentioned, that never happens. That ball carrier never, the tackler never hit head on.
Well, you did indicate that the focal point for contact is the face mask to the numbers, didn't you?
Yes, sir, that's the teaching point. That's the good, correct body position. To do anything else, you got your body out of position.
In spite of the fact that the rule says you're not to use the face mask as the primary point of contact, you teach players to do that, don't you?
Well, I disagree. It's a fundamental disagreement because that doesn't happen.
What doesn't happen?
We don't meet head on. We grade film every week. We grade thousands of feet of film in a season and over the years, and those head-on tackles just don't occur.
Did William meet the ball carrier head on when he broke his neck?
He met him head on at an angle with his head down.
So it does happen that they meet head on.
If William had his head up, that unfortunate accident wouldn't happen.
Okay. What's your philosophy about bringing the parents together prior to the season and telling them in very explicit terms of the risks of playing the game and the things that you're doing to reduce those risks?
Well, you know, I've been coaching a long time, and we just don't even really have a booster club. We try to stay away from parents, you know, kind of trying to run the program for us and get involved in the program that way. And too many times I've just seen too many programs where parents are becoming the focal point rather than the coaching staff, which has all the experience and really is trying to do the best job in the best concern of the kids.
Do you also recall receiving from the State Association a roll of stickers with instructions to put them on the outsides of the football helmets?
Yeah, first time we got that roll of stickers, it came kind of in the mid-season, and I, didn't feel it was that important. If the state wasn't going to send them out in the beginning of the year, I just put them in my drawer.
So you didn't even put them on the helmets that year, did you?
No, sir.
As a matter of fact, I think you said one of your reasons was by then the kids had a lot of the little award stickers that you give them to stick on their helmets, and these stickers would have covered up those awards, right?
Yes, sir, they would have.
They also weren't too compatible with the color scheme of your helmets.
Yeah, it didn't seem to fit in.
Following year, did you go on and use those stickers?
Yeah, we put the stickers on the helmets the next year.
You only did that because the athletic director came out and told you to do it, right?
Yeah, we've got a memo to that effect that they needed to be on there.
Do you believe that those stickers have any educational value for the kids?
I really don't. I don't believe they read them.
And for that reason, you don't make any point of assuring that they're always legible and that the kids are aware of them, right?
No, I have not.
Let's talk a little bit about William as an athlete. Did you consider him to be a skilled football player?
I thought he had skilled abilities and showed good fundamentals and good promise as an athlete. I guess one of the reasons why I like the game of football is because it is a test of courage, and I just thought William needed a little bit more work in that area and his own self-confidence, and I think courage is basically self-confidence, and he was lacking a little bit in that area. Let's
talk a little bit about what happened to William after he went down on the ground. You do recall seeing on the video one of the boys coming over to him and turning him over, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever instruct your athletes not to do that if a player went down on the field and didn't move?
No, I just assumed that they, to leave them alone, and we've always told kids to get back, when someone gets hurt, give them air. As such, we did not instruct not to do that.
I think you said in your testimony in this situation it didn't make any difference because your understanding is he was immediately paralyzed anyway.
Well, from looking at the film, yes, he was paralyzed from the initial hit.
Well, Coach, I think the doctor will testify that William's arm and his foot were moving, and in fact, when you went out onto the field, you saw a movement of his hands before you began to administer care, didn't you?
Yes, I saw his hands move.
Movement means he wasn't paralyzed, doesn't it?
I don't know the medical facts there, no, sir.
Okay. Was anybody else at William's side when you went out to render care to him?
A doctor came off the sidelines, or someone that said he was a doctor.
Did he appear to you to be able to assess and take charge of the situation?
He didn't seem very confident, and he didn't seem like he wanted to take charge. And since we've been dealing with injuries as long as we had, I assumed the responsibility.
What did you observe about William's condition, his state of consciousness, his breathing, and so forth?
Well, he was unconscious, and his breathing became very shallow and very labored. I thought it was really important that he get some resuscitation as far as getting air. I was really concerned that he might be dying.
Okay, and so what did you do?
Well, I took his helmet off so that I could clear his air passages. I'd been a lifeguard years ago, and I wanted to get his tongue clear and get air to him as soon as we could and give him some artificial respiration.
You made sure his tongue was out, pulled his head back so that his neck was extended, and began to administer mouth-to-mouth, right?
That's standard procedure in clearing the airway, yes, sir.
Take any particular caution about how you moved his neck?
No, sir, I didn't think that. I thought it was a head injury.
And you were thinking about he was going to stop breathing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Had you been trained to administer CPR to a person with a suspected spinal cord injury?
No, sir.
As a matter of fact, have you been trained in CPR?
No, sir.
Your view is that mouth-to-mouth is CPR and it's all the same, right?
At that time, I thought it was.
And you mentioned in your testimony you were careful in taking off the helmet, but you don't recall exactly what you did to make sure that there wasn't any unusual movement, do you?
No, sir.
Finally, in terms of your own sports medicine training, did you go to any of the sports medicine clinics that were offered by the district?
I went to one of them about 3 years ago.
Thanks, Coach. No further questions.
Mr. Halbrook, please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, you've said there's about 1 million football players at the high school level right now.
Yes, sir.
And how many days out of the year are they playing football, making contact?
Well, that's the other thing, too, as far as football is concerned. Basically, you got 2 days of contact during the week plus the game. So 3 days out of the week are contact days. The rest are fundamental days and conditioning days, and of course there's a lot of learning that goes on to prepare kids to play the game of football. You got to make them play as a team. You got to get 11 of them out there in the same puzzle. They all got to be on the same page, and you can't just be out there hitting people and get that done.
Now, during each and every one of those days of contact, you have an innumerable times that contact is made, do you not?
It can't even count it. The contact in terms of a practice session, when you've got 100 boys playing football at all levels, and maybe more in some schools with the larger schools, you can't count all the contact that's going on.
So it simply baffles the mind to even imagine the number of times that the two bodies come in contact and nationally.
Yes, sir. It's just unbelievable number.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Ball, any redirect?
No, Your Honor, I like the answers I heard. I'm willing to let the witness be excused. Thank you.
The witness may stand up. Mr. Ball, please call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. We'll call Dr. Allman.
Dr. Allman, like all the other witnesses, you have been previously sworn. Would you please sit over here?
State your full name, please.
Fred L. Allman.
What is your profession?
I'm an orthopedic surgeon,
You have a particular specialty.
sports medicine.
When did you start doing sports medicine work?
Well, I began private practice in 1960. Prior to that time, I had taken care of teams even during my residency in 1957, 8, and 9.
Tell us, Doctor, if you would, the role that you played in persuading the school district to bring in a certified athletic trainer.
Well, we felt like the certified athletic trainer is a very important part of the athletic team. And we have always been interested in having these people associated with the school athletic programs. We feel that they are essential for proper care of our student athletes.
Did you then work with the athletic trainer to develop a plan for providing sports medicine training to the coaching staff?
Yes, we did.
Now, does the need to train coaches in sports medicine end when the district hires an athletic trainer?
Absolutely not. We know of one community, one school that has 1,100 athletes. They have a certified athletic trainer. But having 1,100 athletes, one certified trainer can't be covering every team. The only person that is likely to always be at an event is the coach. So the coach does have a tremendous responsibility when it comes to health care.
I'd like for you to think back to the time when Coach Kintz first became the head coach. Did you, in fact, attend some practices?
Yes, I did.
And were there things that you observed that caused you concern?
Yes, there were.
Could you tell us about that, please?
Well, primarily we felt like the tackling technique was one that had been declared illegal. For years and years, the peers of the coaches had taught a certain technique, and when we were having as many as 40 quads and 40 deaths per year, it became obvious that something needed to be done. At that time, the American Football Coaches Association, the NCAA, the National High School Association, all these people got together and changed the rules so that youngsters would not be taught to block and tackle with his head as a primary contact point.
And were you on the football field seeing the exact techniques that those rules were designed to eliminate?
Yes, I was.
Can you explain for us the mechanics of what takes place with the neck in that position when contact is made?
This creates a condition known as axial loading, and this means that the force is transmitted right down the vertebral column, and if the force exceeds the ability of the cervical spine to transmit this, then damage is likely to occur.
It's for this reason that sports medicine specialists have advocated that the primary contact be with the shoulders of the chest and never with the head.
That is correct.
Did you bring up with the coach your concerns and the knowledge that you had concerning the mechanics of these injuries in football?
Yes, I did.
What did you tell him?
I told him I felt like, based on the evidence that we had now, it had been clearly shown that most of the serious head and neck injuries were related to hitting with the head as a primary contact point, and pointed out that further that even though a lot of people may sustain serious injuries to the neck, that many of these were not quadriplegics or serious head injuries if they were using proper technique.
And what did he tell you?
Well, he told me that he had been in coaching for a long period of time, that he felt like the technique he was teaching was the correct technique, and that I should stick to doctoring and he'd stick to coaching.
Following your efforts with the coach, did you then go to the district athletic director?
Yes, we did.
What did you talk about with him?
We felt like the continuing education programs offered for coaches should be made mandatory, and we went over the material that should be included in those programs.
What did he tell you?
He said that they had not had much success with the programs, the coaches weren't interested in it, that they had other problems, and that they did not have enough money to continue with these programs at this particular time.
Over the years since those initial encounters, have you seen any change in the tackling methods used at Anywhere High School?
No, I have not.
As a matter of fact, several times over the years since then, you've seen players who had complaints of neck pain, have you not?
That is correct.
Was William Brown one of the athletes that came to you with complaints of neck pain?
Yes, we saw William in his junior year, and we saw him again in his senior year prior to this catastrophic injury.
Upon the occasion of your seeing him during his junior year, did you recommend to him that he discontinue activity for a time?
Yes, I did.
How long did you tell him to stay out?
Well, we told him to remain out until he became asymptomatic, and we asked him not to play in the game the following week.
What happened the rest of that week as far as William was concerned, to your knowledge?
He was seen by another physician who he had been referred to by his coach, and that physician told him it would be perfectly all right for him to go ahead and play.
Did you have concern about the quality of medical coverage being made available at some of the schools in the surrounding area?
Yes, I did. Having been at the high school for a number of years, we had found that certain of our athletes, when at away games, would have injuries that we felt like should not have been allowed to return to the game, or were not treated what we would consider to be adequately. And we felt like in order to assure quality of care for our team away, that a physician should go with them.
Did you make a recommendation to that effect?
Yes, I did.
To the athletic director?
Yes, sir.
And what was the response?
Well, the response was that he would get in touch with the coach and that they would discuss it.
How did you first learn of William's injury?
I was called to the hospital very late the night of the game.
And what history were you given about what had transpired?
I was told that he had gone in to make a tackle and that he had sustained a serious injury, and that a discussion had ensued as to whether or not he should be treated locally by the people or whether he should be transported back. And the coach and the parent of William felt like it would be better to bring him back so that he could have treatment, so he was transported some 50 miles back to our hospital.
So it was a matter of more than an hour before you saw him following the injury.
Yes.
In the emergency room, what did you find?
I found that he was quadriplegic.
And did he have sensation?
He did not have any sensation.
What did his x-rays reveal?
X-rays revealed that he had a fracture, dislocation, with minimal displacement of C5-6.
In your experience, were his clinical manifestations consistent with the x-ray picture that you saw?
No, the X-ray picture was that of a C5-6 dislocation. His clinical manifestations, loss of sensation, loss of motion, was that of a lesion higher than the C5-6 level.
And as a matter of fact, had you seen patients of your own with the same degree of displacement of the cervical spine, but without any real neurologic deficit?
We have seen a number of C5-6 subluxations, minor dislocations without quadriplegia, yes.
What's the reason for the difference between those who survive without paralysis and those who become paralyzed?
Well, there are probably a number of factors, but one of the main factors is the immediate care that someone with a fractured dislocation cervical spine receives.
Was any indication given to you with respect to William's movement on the field before he was transported away in the ambulance?
I was told later by several people that they had seen one hand and one foot move when he was on the field immediately after the injury.
And as a matter of fact, in reviewing the videotape, did you detect anything
Yes,
concerning that?
I did definitely see the hand move on one occasion.
What's the significance of that?
The fact that he was not paralyzed at that particular moment, at least to the extent that he was later.
And today, what's his condition?
He is a quadriplegic.
Now, you noticed in reviewing the videotape, did you not, that a teammate turned William over, is that correct?
That's correct.
But it was after that that you still detected movement of the hand.
That is correct.
And you also noticed that Coach Kintz removed William's helmet.
Yes, I did.
Is that in accordance with the accepted standard of care in these situations?
No, it is not.
What would be the accepted standard of care?
In presence of respiratory distress, you do have an emergency to restore respiration, and therefore you have to get to the airway the best you can, and this may necessitate removal of the face mask, but not the helmet.
Okay. Now, based upon your experience, your examination of the records, your review of the videotape, do you have an opinion to a reasonable probability what caused William to sustain the neurologic deficit that he has suffered following that original trauma to his neck?
It was hemorrhage and swelling above the site of the fracture dislocation.
And what
in
causes
the
that?
C4 area.
What causes that?
Motion, abnormal motion, movement, things that could have irritated it.
Was it appropriate for them to transport this boy 50 miles before he received orthopedic care?
Not if they felt like, the authorities there felt like there was adequate facilities for care.
And is it your understanding that there were such facilities available?
Yes, we had been assured that there were.
And it's your opinion that it's that swelling and hemorrhage that has caused his loss of neurologic function?
That is correct.
Thank you, Doctor. No further questions.
If I may, Your Honor.
Doctor, can you say with a reasonable medical probability that William would have lived had the coach not delivered, had he not used techniques to get him breathing again?
No, I can't say that. I was not there. I don't know the degree of distress that he was in, and I can't say what would have happened if it had been done differently.
So for all we know here, William is alive today only because of the action taken by the coach in regard to the breathing.
Well, I don't know that either.
That's just it. We don't know, do we?
That's correct.
Now, William came to you, I think you said a year before the injury, and reported stiffness in the neck.
That's correct.
And I'll bet he or others like him reported stiffness in other areas of their body, did they not?
That's correct.
And in fact, isn't stiffness in the neck and in the knee and just about every other place on your body a common occurrence and effect of playing football?
That is true.
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Allman. You may step down.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, the day is growing short. At this time, I'm going to declare this court in recess. We will resume this trial tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock.
As a friend of the family, how do you feel this trial is progressing?
Well, we need a better system in this country to help injured athletes. This legal system isn't helping anyone but the lawyers. It seems to me the only real winners here are the lawyers. Listening to all the legal mumbo-jumbo makes me think this trial is really a game. The boy's accident is really a shame, and everyone here in town is sorry it happened. But when all is said and done, it was an accident.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Your Honor.
This time, we will resume the trial of the case of William Brown versus the Anywhere School District. Mr. Ball, are you prepared to call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
Thank you. We'll call the defendant principal, Mr. Silcox.
Mr. Silcox, as with the other witnesses, you know you have been previously sworn. Please take the witness stand to my left.
State your full name, please.
David Silcox.
What is your profession?
I am currently the principal at Anywhere High.
You are a defendant in this lawsuit, is that correct?
That is correct.
Mr. Silcox, during your teaching and coaching career, was it your observation that the district provided adequate opportunity for continuing education of coaches in critical areas, particularly those regarding injury prevention and injury care?
I believe I'm on record as having stated I very much enjoyed the in-service that was provided, mandatory in-service that was provided at one time in our school district. The second time that was provided the following year, it was on our own time. It was attended by some of us, but probably about half the staff. And I believe at that time I spoke with the district athletic director and indicated to him that I felt that we needed to continue that kind of program and that it should be done as a mandatory in-service type program.
And I think you testified in your deposition that you felt that the district should have been covering areas such as coaching techniques and coaching psychology as well as sports medicine in those mandatory annual in-service programs.
That is correct, Mr. Ball.
I think you testified that you attended the sports medicine in-service training with some enthusiasm the first year, and you felt that the response to it was in part because it was mandated and employees were compensated. Is that correct?
Yes, it was on, quote, company time.
The second year that that program was offered, was the same experience true?
No, it was offered outside our normal working day, and we were asked to attend on a voluntary basis. We were not compensated for it, and attendance was down probably 50%.
Mr. Silcox, let's talk a little bit about your awareness and philosophies of some of the techniques being employed by Coach Kintz in the program. Were you entirely comfortable with his approach to coaching when you were working in the football program as a coach at one of the lower levels?
No, I was not.
Did you discuss those concerns with him and address his philosophies?
No, I did not.
Matter of fact, you testified in your deposition that he was somewhat of an intimidating fellow and you felt hesitant to challenge him on any of those issues.
Yes, I indicated that since I only played high school football and did not play in college and have not had head coaching experience, that I just felt inadequate to address that, and I thought that the district athletic director would certainly be the person who could speak to Coach Kintz about those issues.
Mr. Silcox, In terms of the bringing of a different sports medicine situation into your school, did you address the subject of having an athletic trainer in the program with the district athletic director?
Yes, I did. I spoke with him requesting that we hire an athletic trainer for Anywhere High.
How did you come to know about the availability and the value of athletic trainers?
Well, through our district athletic trainer and my conversations with him and his recommendation that we each have an athletic trainer at our high schools.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions, Mr. Silcox.
Halbrook.
The court may please, Your Honor. Mr. Silcox, on the subject of continuing education, would it be fair to say that continuing education for coaches is like continuing education for teachers in the sense that sometimes it's mandatory and sometimes it's voluntary?
Yes, I would say that's correct.
And would it be fair to say that we don't get instant and complete knowledge about much of anything, but that education is a continuing process?
Of course, education is a continuing process.
Safety education for coaches included.
Absolutely.
And just based on your personal knowledge, wouldn't it be fair to say that Coach Kintz in this case pursued self-improvement over the years generally as a coach?
To the best of my knowledge, Coach Kintz is a good coach, and he pursued those kinds of things like his colleagues.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Paul, anything further?
Mr. Silcox, I'd like for you to recite for us those normal activities in math class and Latin class that can result in students becoming quadriplegic.
I would know of no practice that would lead to that being the case.
What are the normal activities in math and English and social studies that would lead to students suffering a head injury and becoming unconscious?
There is no normal practice that would lead to that.
And there are normal practices in the course of the activities of sport that can lead to those things, aren't there?
Yes, there are.
And in terms of this issue of mandatory in-service for math teachers and Latin teachers, your district and virtually every district throughout the country has certain days every year when in-service training for teachers is offered and teachers are required to attend. Is that not true?
That is true.
And that relates to their activities as teachers.
That is correct.
As a matter of fact, you dismiss school and send the students home so that these teachers can become better qualified to teach.
Yes.
But that isn't done for coaches so that they can become better qualified to coach, correct?
With the exception that we talked about earlier, the 1 year, a few years ago, when everyone was mandated to be in attendance. That is the only time, to my knowledge, in our district.
Thank you for your answer, and I have no further questions.
Mr. Silcox, you can stand down. Mr. Paul, are you prepared to call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
Thank you. We'll call Dr. Robert Barton, also a defendant in this case.
Dr. Barton, as with the other witnesses, you have been previously sworn.
Yes, sir.
Please state your full name.
Robert Meade Barton.
What is your profession?
I'm an athletic trainer, sir.
In terms of coaching education, what kinds of programs ideally does the athletic trainer implement?
Athletic trainers throughout America are constantly involved in upgrading the knowledge of coaches, recognizing that many coaches went to school in a time that the athletic trainer was an unknown person. Today, opportunities are available at national, regional, state, and a goal of the National Athletic Trainers Association is for that trainer at that high school to provide the ongoing education for that particular coaching staff.
Speak a little bit about the role of the athletic trainer in educating the athletes with regard to injury prevention.
Yes, sir. We have a very desirable position in that the student athlete can often relate to the athletic trainer as well or possibly better than the coach. They are more at ease and willing to discuss some fears and some problems that they might have in a confidential manner.
Now, in terms of the injuries suffered by the plaintiff in this case, and I'm talking not only about the tackling method used and the resulting injury to the neck, but then the ramifications thereafter, to which Dr. Allman testified. What subject matter is addressed in those clinics that would have prepared this coaching staff with regard to an understanding of how these injuries happen, how they can be prevented, recognizing them, and properly caring for them?
As you know, sir, I was not at the game the night of the injury, so I'm basing this more on what I viewed in the film. We always cover CPR. We have offered the opportunity for our coaches to update their CPR rating each year. I am a CPR instructor. That in itself would have been very significant in this case. We also cover head and neck injuries, as they are a very feared part of football.
Dr. Allman, just as one very brief example, Coach Kintz mentioned that this young man's respirations appeared to be very faint. He was concerned that he was going to stop breathing and die, and one of the first things that he did was to remove the helmet. Now, his removal of the helmet within the standard of care as it is taught by athletic trainers and practiced throughout the country, and if not, why not, and what should have been done?
Sir, I'd have to say our basic standard of care was approved by the Athletic Trainers Association and the American Orthopedic Society for Sports Medicine would have been not to remove the helmet.
All right, and what are the alternatives as you would have taught them in these clinics that you offered every year, but the coaching staff didn't attend? Would you like to use the helmet?
Yes, sir.
May I approach the witness as well, Your Honor, to watch this?
Permission granted. Please come forward.
This is a typical helmet which we use in all of our athletes in the school district, and the reason it would not have been necessary to remove the helmet, based on the information that I have, is these are the appropriate type of face masks, which are held together at 4 points with a plastic or leather band that can easily be cut with a variety of instruments, any type of sharp knife, blade. All athletic trainers keep these on them working at a football situation. You do not even need to cut all 4. You remove these 2 bands right here on both sides. The face mask then pivots, slides back to where the face mask is actually laying on top of the helmet. This gives the athletic trainer and physician complete access to the face and airway.
Or the coach, if that be the case.
Correct, sir.
Thank you. I think you testified in your deposition that one of your major concerns about coaching qualifications was the lack of knowledge of CPR in the district.
Yes, sir.
What's the need for coaches to have CPR when we've got paramedics that we can call, or EMTs, or other emergency services?
Sir, if CPR is needed, it is needed immediately. EMTs give CPR more than anybody else in our country, but their success rate is not great, and they are first to admit it's because of the time lapse between the time the phone call is placed and the time they arrive at the patient's side.
Did you offer to present a CPR course to the coaches in the district?
I certainly did. Each semester that I've been employed at anywhere school district, I have actually offered the course, and many of our coaches from other schools and other sports have attended.
Thank you, Dr. Barton. No further questions.
Mr. Halbrook.
If Your Honor may please. Now, the time that William had been knocked out, was that as a result of tackling or carrying the ball, or do you recall?
I was not at the game, sir. I would hesitate to say exactly what happened.
And just a brief slight unconsciousness, as in that case, can occur, can it not, from the correct as well as the incorrect execution of tackling techniques or other techniques?
Yes, it can.
One of the hazards of the game.
Whenever a head is going against another immovable force, there's a chance of a brief period of unconsciousness, be it a baseball hitting a batter, be it a basketball player catching an elbow to the head. Yes, sir, that is possible.
Thank you. No further questions.
At this time, we'll take a short recess.
Dr. Schwartz, is this typical of what is going on in school sports programs?
No, this is an exception. I've been in this sports business for over 10 years before this liability crisis occurred. And the truth is that school sports have never been safer than they are today. Injuries have decreased, and lawsuits, however, have increased dramatically. Now, the problem is not bad sports management, but rather trial lawyers who are bird-dogging every emergency ward in the country and convincing people that somewhere that they are not responsible and that somewhere out in America someone else will pay.
This time we will resume the trial of the case of William Brown versus the Anywhere School District. Mr. Ball, are you prepared to call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Please do so.
We'll call Dr. Marc Rabinoff.
Dr. Rabinoff, as you know, you have been previously sworn. Would you please take a seat on the witness stand?
Would you state your full name, please?
Marc Allen Rabinoff.
What is your profession?
I'm professor and chair of physical education, recreation, and health, and president of my own consulting firm.
Dr. Rabinoff, based upon your review of the materials which you have examined in this case and the information you have received, do you have an opinion, your own opinion, as to the manner in which the school district and its employees deviated from the accepted standard of care in this particular situation?
Yes, I do. In my professional opinion, I believe the district failed to implement an appropriate program for assuring that coaches were currently educated in and employing correct techniques for teaching fundamental football skills and the importance of adhering to the safety rules. I also believe, in my opinion, that the district failed to assure that coaches were properly and continually educated in the matters of sports medicine, particularly injury prevention and avoidance, injury recognition and care, coaching psychology, and the handling of potentially catastrophic situations. I also believe, in my opinion, based upon the information that I've read, that the district failed to implement a program to assure that its athletes would be provided appropriate emergency care at all athletic events, home and away, that the school district failed to implement an appropriate sports medicine program for assuring that player injuries were properly recognized, treated, and monitored, and that the causes of those injuries were properly identified and, if possible, eliminated. And lastly, I believe that the district and the head coach, in my professional opinion, were negligent for failing to specifically warn and inform parents and players in the detail of the risks of participation in the game of football, and particularly of violating rules against the use of the head as a primary point of contact.
Dr. Rabinoff, in your opinion, are there some specific ways in which the coach in this case, and under the facts and circumstances reported to you, deviated from the standard of care?
Yes, there were. I believe that when players are taught to strike an opponent face mask to the numbers or allowed to strike the opponent with the forehead of the helmet, there is a greater tendency in a face-to-face confrontation for them to drop their chin further and thus making contact with the crown of the helmet, which is against the rules and puts the athlete in a serious predicament, potentially serious predicament.
Thank you, Doctor. No further questions.
Mr. Halbrook, do you have any questions for the witness?
Yes, Your Honor, please. Now, have you been describing a standard of perfection, we might say the best of all possible worlds, which we should strive for? Or have you been describing a standard which reasonable people can follow in all circumstances?
It's a combination of both. Of course, we always strive for the best possible, safest, effective, and efficient environment in sport and fitness. These standards that I expressed today and have listed in my report are standards that are recognized by professional associations throughout the country.
Well, thank you, Doctor. I don't have any further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Dr. Rabinoff, you may step down. Counsel, are there any other witnesses to be called in this matter?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Ball, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the lawyers in this case have completed their work. Now it's up to you to reach a verdict based upon all of the evidence that has been presented to you in this mock trial. You must decide which of these defendants, if any of them, were negligent, and if that negligence caused the injuries to William Brown. Under the law, negligence is defined as being the failure to use reasonable care. Reasonable care on the part of these defendants, the school district, the principal, the athletic director, the coach, and the trainer was that level of care and skill and conduct which, in light of all of the relevant surrounding circumstances, is recognized as acceptable and appropriate by similar and reasonably careful school districts, principals, coaches, athletic directors, and trainers. Thus, we're going to ask you to decide two questions. First, if you find that these defendants were negligent, we ask you to determine whether their negligence was the cause of the original injury to William Brown. Secondly, we will ask you to decide if there was negligence on the part of the school district and its employees, who are the defendants in this lawsuit, and whether that negligence was the cause of the aggravation to the injury sustained by William Brown, causing him to become a quadriplegic. What you have seen is a composite of a worst-case scenario of an accident on the playing field. Our intent with this film is to alert you to both the safety and legal consequences which you as a sports professional may encounter. Even in this extreme fact situation, there is no guarantee that a negligently injured athlete will be appropriately compensated under our current legal system, and that's wrong. No matter how much we improve and maximize safety on the playing field, stemming the tide of lawsuits like the one you just saw depends upon returning fairness to the legal system. We could have presented a different portrayal where all the defendants did everything any reasonably prudent professional would have done to minimize the injury. Yet still, they could have been sued and even held liable for damages simply because an accident happened. There is no justice in making the innocent pay for actions not their fault. Unfortunately, some lawyers in America have turned the liability system into a compensation system where they are a prime beneficiary. This is at the heart of what is driving up your insurance rates and devastating American sports. Make no mistake, the future of sports is directly on the line. You have the power to change the laws to reform our legal system, but in order to do so, you need to be informed. A coalition of Americans dedicated to protecting our sports has been formed, called PLS, Product Liability Sports. For them to ensure the survival of school sports in your community, they need to know who you are. Give them a call at 1-800-338-TORT. That's 1-800-338-8678. Or write them at 200 Castlewood Drive, North Palm Beach, Florida, 33408. You can join just for the asking. Do it for your children. Do it for yourself. But most assuredly, do it today. I'm Jonathan Howe, a lawyer and president of the National School Boards Association.